Hello folks, let's bring a bit of unusual history. Basically the past month has been kind of eventful in many ways, and one of the big parts of it was this triple TCG ladder grind. So I was trying to reach up like legendary slash diamond slash god rank in 3 different games. So I was trying to do that throughout October, not super intensively, but still like focusing on it a lot. And TCGs in question are Hearthstone, Faeria, and Eternal TCG. And here you can see actually the deck lists that I mostly used in Wild. Well, actually not fully, not exactly fully. I think this is actually standard. So sorry for that. Actually in Wild I did use Zoo deck, and basically the very stock build of Wild Zoo with Kalisev, and that was one of the most useful decks, I guess, plus the Reno Mage. But anyways, I'll show you guys all of the decks in one slide for Hearthstone for Wild. And why Wild? Basically because there were no BlizzCon points awarded throughout September and October for legendary rank on the ladder, so it made no sense for me to actually play standard, and I didn't enjoy the drafts all that much, so I shifted to wild, and yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. It was very grindy. I didn't expect it to be that hard, but yeah, as for the other 2 games, I did succeed. To be frank, I didn't succeed in Hearthstone because I don't know, I should have pushed it, but I was like struggling a lot, going back and forth. I almost reached like rank 1, so it was like pretty close, but I just had like very bad luck for many days with all kinds of decks. In Faeria, I think once I hit good rank, I was number 72 or something like that. But in Eternal, once I hit the master tier, I didn't actually want to grind much more. Right, what can I say? So yeah, Eternal and Faeria were relatively easy. And in Eternal, I was mainly playing Chalice Control and the Stonescar Queen. But I've tried a few other decks, but they just weren't successful. Plus, I don't actually have a big range of decks that I play or like or have access to. I didn't really like the Rakano plate, it just wasn't that good. My tempo Skycrag deck is not really optimal. I'm just started to assemble Field Control, but it's a pretty slow deck, so it's not really good for ladder if you want to actually grind fast. Tokens was okay, but too inconsistent. Basically, in the Roaches slash Titan deck that I brewed up myself, just didn't seem that strong. Something was missing, or I just was super unlucky with it. Okay, this is the big mix of everything. As you can see, I was having a lot of fun, and the range of games and the range of decks was pretty wide, putting it mildly. So these are the 2 decks mostly used to climb in Eternal. I already mentioned them. Nothing super ridiculous about these particular builds of pretty common archetypes. Pretty stock list of the stones. I mean, the Queen Burn deck. And basically the tournament variant, which is a bit more on oriented on combat, not so much in removal. I think the list is okay, but I've seen quite a few variants, and of course with the new campaign you can, tweak the deck a little bit. There are a couple of cards that actually fit into the deck quite nicely. I've seen some more up-to-date builds that I haven't tried yet, but I've played against them. They seem okay, but I'm not convinced that they're strictly better than this stock version that's been around for a couple of months at least. And as for the chalice control, I didn't want to play on ladder with 4 channels, even though sometimes I kind of wanted to have that, and I did want to have a bunch of life gain creatures just to be able to fight through all that aggro. I didn't like the 2 mana searching for primal sigils that gave you Aegis. It's more interesting in tournaments so that you protect yourself from channels and stuff like this. Yep, actually cut 1 wisdom. I did want to have like a couple curators because silence is so important. Incredibly, I did want to have like 5 big removal spells that kill a big creature, so that was very relevant. And Parliament was actually like pretty interesting because sometimes your channel gets countered, or they have Aegis or something where you play mirror match and then they have the choice and counter the channel, things of that nature. So Parliament was actually like pretty interesting. I kinda liked it main deck. Otherwise, nothing really crazy in this build. As for Faeria decks, so these are mainly the decks that I used to climb to gut rank. And the first one, the yellow splash blue tempo, I think I've used it the least, and this is the very last version of it. And basically use this tempo variant of the Crackhorn up to rank 5, and then after that I used a bunch of different decks, but mainly I think I was using this red yellow burn that actually performed rather well. It has some clunky draws. It's a bit weird. You have a few less creatures, but you can race much better because you have more removal, so you just interact with the board, try to stay alive, and then just have one very big turn where you just push for lethal basically. And these are the tournament decks, same red yellow tempo, very common red mid-range. I'm not sure if there's a Garden in there. I think that's the full deck list. Feel like so. Yeah. Some people just sub third Slinger for Garden or for third Firestorm, but I think that's the list. Very straightforward. It's been around forever. And then these sort of blue-green tempo, which is supposed to be able to compete with the other 2 decks, which are this red mid-range or red aggro and the tempo decks. So they're supposed to be able to be controlish but aggressive when needed to try to raise, because if you try to go long and have some mediocre clunky draws against red or tempo, well, you're just toasted. So this deck can actually work out fine against averages. As for wild decks that I used in Hearthstone to climb, well, there were a bunch of different decks. I think the most successful ones, once again, were the Rhino Priest deck and the Zoo deck with Malganis and Void Colors. Sorry for the language, is just that since there was the latest patch, there was a bug that altered the collection a little bit and so on, and everything was kind of slow. So in the settings for the client, I mean for Blizzard Net, I switched the language and I kept it this way because, well, I speak that language and it was just super hilarious in terms of flavor and voices and so forth, so it was super entertaining. So that's why I kept it. Plus, a lot of players are on the same page as I am, so yeah, why not? Plus, you are familiar with a lot of these decks, I suppose. Plus, you know the cards by the pictures, I suppose, most of them. Yeah, and I tried to really push fast for the legend with the token druid, but it didn't quite work out. Get countered with bad matchups. Yeah, what else? At some point, the Reno Warlock was okay, but after a while, after a certain point, it started to be pretty bad. Miracle Priest was actually had a pretty good win rate, and then Temple Match had a pretty good win rate. So I recommend those. This is my own build of Aggro Shaman. I think the stock one might be a bit better, I'm not sure. I haven't played with the Aggro Shaman that much. It was okay, but it didn't feel reliable enough. I like the Token Druid or Miracle Priest much better. And then, yeah, Temple Mage was also probably better as the aggro deck, but the best aggro deck by far was probably the Zoo Warlock. It was very consistent, very powerful, and I would have probably played more Reno Priest if I didn't get like that unlucky with Reno decks, and yeah, just was running out of time slowly. But overall, if you just focus on one game, like to reach legend, then yeah, Reno Priest is okay for wild and probably for standard as well. Let's see, was there anything outside the box in the builds? Oh yeah, so for Aggro Shaman, if you haven't noticed, so what I did was, oh yeah, so a bunch of these decks are in the Tempo Storm's last meta snapshot for wild. In their last report you can find all these decks. Basically I used mostly Decklists from there, but then just like changed them a little bit, but not so much. I think most of the decks are from there, with the exception maybe of like Aggro Shaman, which I like just wanted to, you know, do something of my own. I added Leroy in there, and I added the Lava Burst. I think that's pretty much it, because I still don't like the Portal in Aggro Shaman, because, well, the metagame is so weird. It's like Portal is barely ever really that needed. The range of decks that you face is so wide that it doesn't really do much. Yeah, that's about it. The Zoo Warlock is really interesting because you get a lot of reach through white colors into Mal'Ganis, and then Blood River Gul'dan was actually won me a few games, and then you have so much reach. Okay, so Faeria is still in standard, but then the power overwhelming went to Hall of Fame, so you can only use it in wild, even though it's from classic. So yeah, you have a lot of reach, and really like the deck. And of course, if you you probably can find enough dust to make back again the power overwhelmings, but then I feel like you don't have to have the word colors plus Mal'Ganis plus Blood River. You can still play just the horses, the mayors, or what is it called? I forgot. Anyways, the 7 drops that pump the creature and give it ton, so you can put those in there. But you definitely don't play Void Color if you don't have Mal'Ganis in there. Same for the Reno deck. And really like this Arena Priest build because it was still potent against all the aggro decks. This particular build is a bit worse in the mirror and against other Reno decks, but it's better against everything else. And the inclusion of Lyra is actually pretty vital because a lot of the time you run out of steam. and you need something to power up like the combo kill, and this build has more healing with the blending heal plus the other one that's used in standard. Instead of Velen, you have this 4-drop, that's the 5/4 with Inspire that deals to both players. And when you have the combo assembles, then you still have the machine gun Velen style, and it's a cheaper machine gun. But if you face a lot of mirror matches, you probably want to have a slower build with both Velen and this 4-drop. Pretty standard Reno Warlock list. What can I say about the Miracle Priest? Well, Lordhab was actually pretty good. You do want Lyra, then I kinda like the double Akunai Priest, cause actually that's 1-drop that heals for free, or make a guy. So it's actually pretty interesting because with Akunai, it's actually a removal. It's like a bolt, so that's quite useful. Something that's it can be used to finish off your opponent. So a lot of people don't probably think about that interaction. And now, as for a couple of slides for the decks that I use past month and started off with this month. What I'm gonna be testing in standard mode: Control Mage, Aggro Secret Mage, pretty standard Decklists, well, sort of standard ones. I think I've seen some other versions, but I feel like I want to try out this build. Aggro Druid is actually pretty solid. I actually like this list more than the one that's more down to earth with no mid end or high end. Then as for Wolf Shaman, I'm using this weird build which has a lot more gas in the later stages of the game. Has much more of the grinding capacity, but it still can have aggressive draws. Not sure if it's worth it, but I think it will fare much better against Warlocks and Priests, in my opinion. Then there is this Fatigue Warlock, which I really want to try. The deck seems really sweet, but I haven't played with all that much. It's not the meal version, it's actually Fatigue Control. So yeah, it's not so combo-ish, but it's still pretty fun. And then there is this pretty peculiar Dragon's Priest build that can get aggressive, can get combo-ish, can get control-ish. It's pretty interesting. It's a typical mid-range that can, shift roles in the middle of the game according to whatever you're facing. A few more decks. Big Priests that Tyler has been streaming with, and it's not his build. He took it from some other streamer. I don't remember from whom. From Zala, I think. So it's a big priest, and then the weird part comes from using this 2-mana spell that says all the healing becomes damage, and then you use the circle because you can't have Akunai in the same deck. So, but this way you have a lot more AOEs in here, so you have a lot more sweepers. And this build basically plays all the sweepers it can. But everything else is pretty much standards except for one silence, which you can use on your own guy once you pull out something with Barnes, because there could be situations where you might want this, plus using it reactively is also a fine thing to do. You can find it with divisions. It can help you with sort of semi-combo when you have Shadow Reaper online. I probably do like this Control Warlock list a lot more than what Stan Sivko showed up recently, because it has Doomsayers, it has the Crabs, it has the Windflowers for value, it has more demons in it, so your Blood Reaper actually is better. Elixraz is actually quite interesting, and yeah, that's pretty cool, I think. This mid-range hunter is from Nick Chipper. I think the deck is alright, but I would only play it a lot if you just like Hunter so much, but I don't think it's a great deck. It's solid tier 2, I think, but tier 2 at most. Then I have this kind of experimental version for the Warlock. It has few oddities. I removed a lot of, kind of tournament style cards, and I've tried to tune it up against other aggro decks just for the latter, so that I have a bit of advantage against rogues and mirror matches and just other aggro decks, but it's probably much worse against anything controlish. So I've added a weird 5-drop for such a deck, this big 7 toughness taunt. I've added the Defender of Arthas, and then added the added more elementals, added more both mortal coils for mirrors. So let's see. I've had decently good runs with the more tournament style build, but I think this one is better for ladder. Then we have your classic Razaku's standard priest. I believe that's Orange's build that he's been actually playing in this first few days in this new season, and he's been pretty happy with the deck. But I haven't had that much practice with this particular build, I will say. But it's without a huge amount of practice, I think I will be too slow with this build. So I might just use a cancer deck like the Warlock to climb, and then maybe if I reach Legend, then there I'll use the Razaku's Priest. And then we have an oddity, a Taunt Quest Warrior. I feel like if you're up for a deck like that, then this is probably the list that you should be playing. I think it's a very rock solid, and I'd rather play a couple of Doomsayers instead of extra weapons or extra chip removals, because it just doesn't serve you right. The deck becomes so clunky, but this is really good, especially with so many Kalazev decks in the metagame. I kind of like it for ladder, but I don't think it's good for tournaments, because all the priests will eat you, some warlocks will eat you, so yeah, big priest is probably also very tough. But don't worry, it's good for ladder because of all the aggro decks, but otherwise I wouldn't be playing it. Okay, thanks for watching. Until the next sale, goodbye folks.